Welcome to Hands on Health, the podcast all about living your healthiest life on the coast. I'm your host, Felicia Struve. I sat down with two exercise gurus, Brett Ralston and Chad Rankin. Brett is an exercise physiologist in the CMH Cardiac and Pulmonary Rehab program, and Chad is a certified athletic trainer who works in the clinic and on the field. They are a wealth of knowledge. If you are getting back into exercising, stick with me for some great practical advice on building an exercise habit. All right, so I am joined today by Brett Ralston and Chad Rankin. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So can you guys tell us a little bit about yourself? Maybe, Brett, would you go first?
Yeah. So I'm an exercise physiologist in cardiac and pulmonary rehab. I've been at CMH since 2016, almost exactly 4 years I started. And I've been in cardiac and pulmonary rehab since 2010. I moved from Missoula, Montana, and worked at St. Patrick Hospital there in the cardiac and pulmonary rehab department.
What do you do as an exercise physiologist with cardiac and pulmonary rehab patients? What does your job entail?
So what we are is we're kind of the bridge between patients being discharged from their hospital if they had an event, usually a cardiac event in our case. So somebody had a heart attack, somebody had maybe open heart surgery, and then they're discharged from the hospital, and we set up their treatment between the next couple months. It's typically about 3 to 4 months of rehab, and we go ahead and contact doctors and get them referred into the program. And then my job is to make sure that we set up an exercise program that's safe for them, that'll promote the most health benefits for them, and hopefully the most healing process for them as they're recovering from their event.
So you are working with people who may not have exercised in decades.
Possibly. Yeah. So very deconditioned. Usually the people that are really deconditioned, though, that go into a procedure like that take a little longer to get back up to speed. But we see progress almost in all the patients. In fact, in order to get reimbursed for the program through Medicare, we actually have to show there's progress in their treatment and their plan.
Wonderful. Well, Chad, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your role?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a certified athletic trainer. I have been a certified athletic trainer since 2000. I've been at CMH since the fall of 2011. So 9 years, actually. And I work with sports athletes in the area at the local high schools, evaluation of sports injuries, treatment, and sometimes some rehabilitation, like I was doing with a student this morning and things. Let's see. I'm from Pennsylvania, and so therefore I'm a huge Steelers fan, and I like to give Brett a lot of grief about his Cowboys.
Hopefully that wasn't going to come up.
Well, actually, I think when we were talking earlier, you guys were throwing a little mud because was one of your teams not as well conditioned as the other? Is that what I was hearing?
Oh, the Cowboys have had a bunch of injuries, yeah. Some that couldn't have been avoided anyway. They were, traumatic, but in discussing this topic, that's kind of why I brought it up, was the fact that the rates of injuries are exponentially increased because of the COVID layoff and things like that too. So that was kind of the idea of the layperson kind of getting back into exercise that's been quarantined for a while.
Yeah. So you guys have kindly joined us today to talk about how, for those of us who may have holed up inside for months, or maybe, now that we're into the winter, it's really getting hard for a lot of people to get out and be active, just how to get back to it without hurting yourself, and just why it's so important. So thank you.
No problem.
I think you guys are the ideal people to tell us why exercise is such an important part of a healthy life. What are the benefits, and why do we need to take this as seriously as we do as breathing and eating and sleeping?
Well, there's many benefits, actually. I think the biggest reason is that exercise has been shown to decrease your chances of mortality, right? So you can live longer, essentially, basically. So by having healthy exercise habits, which can help in every other area, you sleep better, you feel better, your daily activities go better, even cognition and memory improve, and those sorts of things. Whenever you are active and healthy, people who actually, I know from, going through quarantine and things like that, sitting around, you really start to feel sluggish and not wanting to do things as well, I guess, or pay as much attention to things. So yeah, the benefits are many, but I think the biggest is, hey, you can live a longer life. Your mortality rate goes down. So
Yeah.
And isn't it also true that you can live not only longer, but like better into an older age? Like people who are active experience a healthier, I don't know what you call it. Like basically, you're not sick for the last 10 years of your life, or you're not as likely to be sick for the last 10 years.
It's the quality of life goes up tremendously. And I mean, you risk bone loss even as we get older. We all start to reduce our bone density, and so it's important to maintain muscle strength as we get older, reduce the risk of injury. So comorbidities like Chad was talking about and risk factors for heart disease go way down. Just the risk of diabetes and how prevalent diabetes is in the population, that's improved tremendously. Our body recognizes glucose better. We're more insulin. We have more sensitivity to the insulin with the exercise. So the science behind it's pretty tremendous how important it is. But talking about quality of life, I think that's, for me personally, I think that's the most important aspect. People that can enjoy their life as they get older, because we all will slow down eventually. We're not going to be able to run the marathons and things we might have been able to do as in our youth.
So that brings up the question of what counts as exercise.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, seriously, what counts?
Well, the definition of it is actually it's planned and it's structured. So activity is important. We encourage that. We encourage people to park further away from the store so you can walk a little bit more, take the stairs instead of the elevator, those kinds of things. But I think it's important to also understand that exercise is routine. It's something, it's a regimen. It's something that we plan and it's structured. And the research out there is endless on how exercise, if it's planned and structured, just like your daily routine of brushing your teeth or taking your medications at the same time, shows benefit that to also include that exercise into your daily lifestyle. The guidelines from American College of Sports Medicine suggest that we should exercise 150 minutes at a moderate intensity per week in order to receive the heart or health benefits from that cardiovascular point.
That's 30 minutes a day for 5 days a week, or like roughly 25 minutes a day?
Yeah, you can split it up however you want, as long as you maintain 10 minutes of continuous exercise. So we still see the benefits. If somebody does 10 minutes 3 times a day to get 30 minutes that day, we still see the cardiovascular benefits, improve blood pressures, improve resting blood pressure, resting heart rate, seeing the risk of diabetes going down, the risk of weight gain, a lot of even cholesterol values, we've seen improvements with 150 minutes a week. So,
And how quickly do people, let's say somebody who's sedentary, how quickly do they start to see benefits of exercise? I know day 2, you're probably feeling sore if you've just started something, but after that?
Well, you can make what's called initial gains in the first 2 weeks, and that's great, but it can be dangerous if you overdo it, right?
Okay.
So just like you're saying, sore from day 2, what you're talking about is what's called delayed onset muscle soreness. So somebody who has not exercised for, say, weeks, months, or even years, they may start into just a walking program, and they're going a little too fast, or they're going a little too long, because in that first day or 2, they feel fine, they feel great, and they kind of push the envelope a little bit. But delayed onset muscle soreness is a buildup of lactic acid that pools in the muscle bellies, like your quads and your glutes and your calves. things like that. And then, on day 3, usually about that 72-hour mark after your initial exercise, that's when people are like, man, I can barely sit down because my legs hurt. I don't want to walk up the stairs. And it almost feels like an injury to them. And they may even go to their doctor because they think, hey, I injured myself. Well, not really. You just need to kind of, you overdid it, and you need to give your body time to get rid of that lactic acid out of your system. You can do certain things, stretching and ice to try and alleviate that. But it can be quite painful if you really go too hard, too fast. But like I was saying, the initial gains in the first 2 weeks, you can really see that. It's quite evident. And what happens is people end up, after that initial 2 weeks, they kind of start to plateau a bit. And then that's when they're 3 weeks or 4 weeks into an exercise program, and they're like, I'm not getting any better. So then they quit. And then that becomes a problem, because it's like, well, you don't want to quit. You just want to find the next level that you can get to safely and exercise. So
that brings up the question, Brett, you said it has to be planned. That's part of it, being exercise instead of activity. So if we are planning our approach and we don't want to overdo it in the beginning, but then we know that we're going to face this plateau period, how do you structure an exercise program that is safe, that is motivating, that people see enough gains early enough to continue going, and that they get over that plateau?
I think it's important to make sure you're setting up short-term goals as you're exercising. One, it develops that self-autonomy, like I actually accomplished something and I achieved it. And so that's an important behavior that we want to encourage, especially in our patients here in cardiac rehab. So setting up the short-term goals, starting out easy. I mean, all of us want to jump into it and run that 6.5 or 7 minute mile like we did back in our youth, but you have to understand that you've been deconditioned for a while, you've been in quarantine, you haven't been doing much exercise. So it's really critical on your body system to start out slow and make sure that what you're doing isn't hard exertion. It's maybe somewhat hard or fairly light, and making sure you get more focused on endurance and your time that you're doing it versus how intense it is. You don't want the intensity to be too high when you start out. So that's part of I think the structure that we put into it and try to encourage with everybody.
Hey there, it's Felicia. Thanks for listening. I'd love to include your questions or comments in an upcoming episode. To leave me a message, please call 503-338-4654. If you've got a health question, I'll do my best to get you an expert answer. Again, that number is 503-338-4654. Now let's get back to our guest. Well, just a little personal note. I went home one day and I said, okay, I gotta do something. I have to get out. I need to start running again. And I was a college athlete. So for me, there's been a great fall from grace on the exercise front. But I said this to my kids. I said, I want to run a 5K. I'm going to try for a turkey trot, which of course it's around the corner now and I'm not there. But the great thing was they said to me, we'll do it with you. And let's not just do a 5K. Let's do the Fort to Sea Trail, which of course is terribly daunting. But it's all downhill from
depending
our
on
area.
Start. Yeah.
Right. I'll go downhill. But, I like what you said, Brett, about focus at first on the amount of time, the endurance that, if I'm going to go out and run for 30 minutes, as long as I finish my 30 minutes, even if I'm not running the whole time, it sounds like that's the place to start.
Don't set too high of expectations for yourself.
Yeah. Well, and especially if you were that person who could run the 6.5, 7 minute mile, which I never could, but if you were that person, you expect to be able to get back to that. Oh, I could train for 5 or 6 weeks and be there, right? But when you hit 40, 50 years old, 60 years old, it doesn't happen quite that fast anymore, does it?
No, I think we have to realize the new norms. I mean, as we're realizing with the way our lifestyle is now, we all have new norms, and we have to set our goals a little under what we used to set them as to prevent injury. And ultimately, long term, we want to be able to continue something, an exercise program, a structured program, versus like Chad was talking about, developing an injury. And that's the field Chad works in, is with these kids that and people that have exercised to the point of exhaustion or overloaded their system. So now they're struggling with a knee injury or hip injury, and that sets you back that much further.
So we need to give up this idea that we have to run until we throw up, or we got to push it until we feel the pain, feel the burn, essentially.
Yeah.
Need little, not that much.
The old adage, no pain, no gain. Don't follow that. That's not a good one to follow. I think that was from the 80s, right?
Right.
But I think with age, maybe we can't do what we needed to, or what we could have when we were younger. However, you have the benefit of experience, actually, in knowing what your limits are a little bit more, actually, because when I'm working with those high school athletes, they feel like they're bulletproof. I can go out there, I can jump this high, and I can run this fast, and I can lift all that weight and things, trying to, show off to their friends, or trying to keep up with other kids that they play and compete with, that sort of thing. But then they end up injuring themselves, and then they come talk to me, and then they wonder why they hurt, that sort of thing. So I think, like you say, starting from the beginning, kind of measure where you're at, what your resting heart rate is. Your resting heart rate should be, ideally somewhere between 60 and 70 beats per minute at rest. And then whenever you start with exercise, everybody's going to be, depending on your level of conditioning, everybody's going to be at a different level. So when Brett says moderate exercise, you want to kind of get that heart rate up 20 to 30 beats above that resting heart rate for that 10-minute period. And as you work up to that 30 minutes, once you get to 30 minutes in a session, then you can consider, going 5 and 6 days a week. But it is a progression, and you do need to take a couple of weeks to get up to that orthopedically from that, so that you can condition your soft tissues to prevent that tendonitis, or to prevent, those muscle strains and things like that. So I would say the other thing is make sure that you have a good level of hydration as well too. People should drink half their body weight in ounces of water a day, ideally, to stay hydrated. So just take your body weight and find a bottle that's 12 ounces, and know that you have to drink X amount of water bottles in a day, that sort of thing. Hydration is very important, not only for muscle function, but it also helps stabilize blood pressure and things like that too. Don't exercise when you haven't eaten all day, that sort of thing. Low blood sugars can cause lightheadedness, and faint and that sort of thing too. And after exercise, it's a good idea to get some sources of protein, about 6 to 8 grams of protein after exercise, to help with muscle synthesis and things like that. So something like a simple glass of chocolate milk after an exercise workout can give you that source of protein that you need. And but anyway, I started to go off on some
No, I think absolutely. I'd love to end today. I know we have so much that we can go into, but I'd love to end today with, what's your one piece of advice for someone who's getting back into exercising, or maybe for the first time?
It's hard to have just one piece of
I know that's a big thing to compress.
Well, I think it's like Brett said, setting up your goals. You really need to, before you start, you got to set those goals. Where am I at, and where do I want to get to? And be modest, and don't beat yourself up if initially you don't make those short-term goals. That sort of thing. Just realize, hey, I just have to readjust, that sort of thing. So set those goals, try and stick to them. But I guess maybe the one takeaway point is, once you start, don't quit. Make it part of your active everyday, lifestyle. Like Brett was saying, park further away from the grocery store and take the stairs instead of the elevator, those sorts of things. Just little things like that can really kind of make a difference in your overall health.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it goes back to habits. It's always habits, isn't it?
It's a lifestyle change, really, from the convenience that we have of everything today, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Deliver my groceries to my house, right? And that sort of thing.
Well, so maybe if you get your groceries delivered, now you need to take a walk around the block a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, safety.
What about you, Brett?
I would say definitely safety, and that starts with your goals. I mean, making realistic goals, the smart analogies, specific goals to things that you want to accomplish, but being safe about those, and starting out, as Chad mentioned, hydrated, proper nutrition, just to make sure as you're going into this, you're not going to worsen your health. You're here, exercise is to improve health. And so being safe about it, realistic goals. I think that's it.
So in terms of a realistic goal and a sort of a modest goal, as you both mentioned, getting up and taking a 10-minute walk through the halls in your house, is that, for some people, that's like the place to start? Yeah.
Yeah. And, many people have fitness trackers these days, so you can count the number of steps that you walked in a 10-minute period. And a goal can be, next time I want to walk 100 steps further or 300 steps further or something like that, or add a set of stairs into that or something like that. With COVID, exercising indoors is not, really recommended right now. Unfortunately, the weather is kind of pushing us all indoors right now. So it can be difficult to find the right work environment and that sort of stuff. But you got to get creative with those sorts of things these days.
And you mean by exercising indoors, you mean like at a gym or at the pool or those things, not like in your house?
Yeah. Right now that actually the governor's order is all shut down, actually, right? Except for us here at the hospital, because it's a considered medical necessity. It's prescribed exercise by doctors, that sort of thing. We follow all the guidelines in here and things too. So to do our best to provide care safely. Right.
Well, thank you both for joining me today. I think this is such an important topic for so many of us, and getting that sort of remedial help on how to get back into it when, unfortunately, most of us who gave up being active when we, went out into the workforce, we're starting to pay for it now with achy joints and whatnot. So I know that doesn't include you two, but
they have a saying over in rehab: motion is lotion.
Motion is lotion.
The more you move, the better.
All right. I might put that on my wall as a little motivation. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Felicia Struve, and this has been an episode of Hands on Health, brought to you by Columbia Memorial Hospital.